Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Masterminds Podcast.
Each episode, we invite extraordinary guests who are masters of their craft. They're innovators, entrepreneurs, and of course, motorcycle enthusiasts who have made their mark in the world.
They share their stories, insights, and hard-earned wisdom, giving you a front row seat to the strategies and experiences that shape their successes.
So sit back, grab a drink, and get ready for an exhilarating ride as we dive deep into the minds of these exceptional individuals.
Along the way, we'll uncover powerful strategies, gain fresh perspectives, and explore the limitless possibilities of what it takes to be an American mastermind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Masterminds Podcast. I am your host tonight, Topher Sheeler. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Adams.
What up, what up?
We got Alec Langdon up on the soundboard here. Love to see his hand. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a little break here because I don't know that we've had a guest that Rob has been so excited about in quite a minute here. So, Rob, why don't you introduce us to our guest this evening?
Well, everyone, I'd like you to meet my friend Louie Hamner. And when I say friend, I've known Louie now. I've known you for like 10 years almost.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Louie owned a title company that was in the same company that I was working at as a real estate agent. And they had these morning meetings. In the morning, we'd get down there and we would chant, "We could do this. I am the voice." And Louie would be a part of that meeting with a few of his key staffers. And I always thought, okay, there he is. And in real estate, we're very prideful. We refer to all the other businesses as ancillary businesses because ours is the core business. Like
That's right.
We're the NASCAR and you're the sticker. But it's not true. It's not true. These businesses support one another, and you are always very patient with these prideful real estate agents. But the one thing that I always, and I told this to you, Topher, is that I was brand new in the business. I'd only been in for a year or so, 2 or 3.
Wow, was that it?
I was brand new. And you were one of the few people in this ancillary perspective that took me seriously. Lenders wouldn't take me seriously. And you were always very kind and respectful. You always talked to me like I had a brain. And I was very grateful because I had such a tremendous amount of respect for you. I almost kind of had a little bit of I was telling Topher like a fanboy feeling towards, man, this is Louie Hamner. Like, this is the guy. And you were always so kind and thoughtful, and you were always willing to take a minute and stop. And I knew you had a lot going on and be like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. And you complimented my shirts one time. Like, you always look so sharp, Rob. You got those new shirts. And I was just like, thanks, Louie. And
well,
so
Stroke the ego a little bit. You can get Robbie to do anything if you do that.
Yeah, say something nice about how I look. You look great, buddy. And so tremendous amount of respect. And then over the years, just watching you grow your business, you had a very successful title company. What does title do, just for our listeners?
We do real estate transactions and we insure them against any potential fraudulent things or liens or unknown or liens that might be on the property that make sure those get cleared up and before someone takes new ownership of a property.
So like if I was a buyer and I bought a house and then all of a sudden a plumber shows up and say, hey, I did work on this house 2 years ago and they never paid me and so I'm going to put a lien on it, Louie's business would go through and make sure that would be handled.
Sure.
And insurance
Okay.
against something like that. Yeah. And you built this large company up. You rebranded. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that. Your rebranding.
Yeah, I merged with a friend of mine. We merged our companies. We rebranded and then kind of went out a little bit stronger than what we were because he was able to do things that I couldn't do very well. So it was kind of nice that we kind of divided up our lanes and it allowed us to really grow a really big title company. We were probably the second, if not the first, most productive privately owned title company in Utah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Big deal. And here's the thing, and this was the real genius of Louie and his organization, was there were some of the most amazing people in there. And I could make a list. I could make a list of 5 or 10 people that I know in your organization that I think are probably the best there are.
Yeah.
And some of them have gone on to different areas, but this was the hub back in the beginning of my career, and this was the place to go. And there was many times I'd walk upstairs and just, I don't know, and somebody would help me out with a problem, and I'd figure it out and go back and sound like a credible real estate agent because I had all the information I needed. And so what I was going to say is the genius was the organization itself. A lot of good people.
Yeah, it was a good culture, and that we really focused on that. Kind of what Peter Drucker says, when he says that strategy or culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so what we knew is that if we just built a really strong culture, that would be the best thing that we could do to grow. Mm-hmm. And that really did. It led the way, and we were able to accomplish a lot of things that we didn't think were possible in such a short amount of time.
And then the company grew up, and you were given an offer, and now you've partnered, or I don't know the right language, but you're associated now with a national organization or part of that.
Yeah. So at the end of 2021, the largest title company actually in the United States, Fidelity National Title, they came in and made us an offer to buy us out. So they bought us out at the end of 2021, which was something we weren't really planning on. Something actually I personally didn't really decide until probably mid-November, and it happened mid-December.
Oh my goodness.
It was just that fast, and the timing was great because top of the market, but it was a great time to do that, and it was a great company to do that with because of the amount of resources and that they have. Sue, Sue, we were talking yesterday, we were in a meeting yesterday, and she said, I can't think of another title company that has all of the tools and resources that we have. They have some of the things we have, but not all of them, and they really do. So it was a great partnership because they had all the things that we have been trying to do. They had actually completed it,
Sure.
So it was awesome for that to happen. It was perfect.
So a lot of things happening, but I don't want to start there. That's the end.
Yeah,
this is like it's like we're doing the
moving backwards.
Yeah, we're moving backwards now. In the beginning, where'd you grow up, Louie?
I was born in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. Grew up though in Midwest Indiana, and central Indiana. We're about 70 miles south of Indianapolis.
Okay.
But out in the middle of nowhere, so out in the middle of the sticks. And I would say we had 13 kids in our family. 2 parents, right? So in the first house that I remember living in, it was technically a 3-bedroom, but in our world today it would have been a 2-bedroom,
Yeah.
So it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with 15 people.
Oh my goodness.
In that house. And we had an outhouse, and we grew up using the outhouse thinking
that's how it was.
That's just how it was,
Yeah.
So we grew up really poor. So that's how it started.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
One of the stories in the Louie lore, can I say that? That's fun to say fast.
Rob's good with words.
A little bit, right?
Was the Star Wars story. You might tell him that story. I love the story so much. I've heard you tell it twice.
Yeah. So, when I was a kid, I loved Star Wars. It was just like I really identified with that. And when Return of the Jedi came out, I had been saving up money to take me and my friend, and my brother was going to go. He was a senior in high school, and we were going to go see Return of the Jedi. Well, so I saved up my money. School was out. School had just finished, right? Like probably around the 20th of May or something like that. And then anyway, so we rode into town with my dad, which was like 35 miles away, and we went to go see Return of the Jedi. And when we got there, we realized that we didn't have enough money for all 3 of us to go.
Oh, no.
And so I think we were like 75 cents short, something like that. And we just sat around and we looked for change, couldn't find anything. And we didn't think.
Checked all the phones.
Yeah, we did. We went into the arcade. We're like checking the quarter slots in the arcade.
Yeah.
Like watching the guy play Galaga, and just couldn't find it. I think we found a little bit, but we never found enough. And we didn't even think to ask, could you just let us in for, whatever. But so we ended up not going to see it.
Oh, no.
And I remember we were walking back because we had to walk from my dad's work to the theater, which was about a mile, maybe a mile and a half, something like that. And I was walking back with my friend, Ben. His name was Ben Brown. And I just said, man, one day I'm going to have enough money to take all my friends to Star Wars. And so when Star Wars came out new, just several years ago, right?
Yeah.
as a company, we reserved the movie theater.
The whole theater.
The whole theater, and I took all my friends to Star Wars.
That's
It was
awesome.
like, this was awesome. It was like a dream come true. I just remember thinking that and saying that to Ben, and like, I'm not looking for quarters, you know, and I'm like, and I just paid for everybody to go. And it was awesome.
We all got popcorn.
Yeah.
He was dressed as a stormtrooper.
That's right. That's right. I was dressed as a stormtrooper.
We were taking pictures. I didn't know it was Louie, and I'm a Star Wars. I'm a fan. I'm not as big a fan, but I'm a pretty good fan. And I always say to the stormtroopers, like in the parades and stuff, like clones are people too. Do you remember me saying that to you?
Yeah, you said
clones are people too. I got a lot of respect for you, buddy. And you like. There's a picture you can't see because he's wearing his mask, but I'm pretty sure he was laughing under there. Because
That's funny. Yeah, that's right.
Man.
Yeah. So that was awesome. But
That's
yeah.
really cool. Amazing how things come full circle, you know, when you're
Yeah.
on path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like you to tell that story, Louie, because it puts a really great context on the where I was and where I am, kind of your origin story.
Yeah.
As you were growing up in 35 miles away from the town, where did you go? Like you're growing up, you're graduating from high school. What happened next?
So I graduated from high school. I got a job, and I saved some money to go on I served an LDS mission to Greece, which was not where I wanted to go. I wanted to go someplace where I could use the language for something. You know, I've learned a language that was useful, like
Sure.
Spanish or Japanese or something like that. And I went to Greece, and I'm like, nobody speaks this, you know. And so, anyway, so
But
I did
you could
that.
read the classics
Yeah,
now?
that's right. That's right.
Some Homer.
So I did that, and then I came back home to Indiana and came out to Utah to visit. I had a couple of siblings that were out here. Long story short, I was trying to go out with this girl that was out here, and that was getting set up with, and this before cell phones, so we kept on playing phone tag, and it was just like we never met up. And so I think it was like the Wednesday, we're leaving Friday, or we're going to leave Saturday morning, and I think it was Thursday night or something like that, and I called, and she wasn't there. So I was talking to her roommate, who I never met, and I just said, well, Elena's not here, and I said, well, what are you doing tomorrow night? Do you want to go out? And she goes, okay, and so I set myself up on a blind date with her, and when I went down there and drove down to Provo and met her, I was staying in Sandy. When she opened the door and I saw her, I just knew I was going to marry her. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to marry this girl. This is it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like crazy. And so
That's cool.
it was crazy. So I went back to Indiana, and for 6 months I wrote her letters and called her, and she was just you could tell she was disinterested, but I thought the date went well. Like,
yeah.
What's going wrong, And one day I just had this, voice in my head that I just heard, like, if you want to marry her, you're going to have to pack up and move out right now. And so I just quit my job, packed up my stuff.
Jumped in the Pinto.
Yeah, like the Beverly Hillbillies, loaded up the truck, and came out to Utah. And then I called her again from my brother's house, and I could tell she was interested. And I was like, what? How? Like, what has changed? Like last week she wasn't interested.
Same phone call.
Yeah, and she didn't know I was in Utah.
Oh.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And then she goes, the caller ID says 801-576-1391. Are you in? Where are you? I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I go, I'm in Sandy. And she goes, okay, well, let's go out. And that was it. Like, we went out a couple times, and I was like, I was ready, you know. So we got married. That was in October. We didn't get married till June the next year. But like
A long engagement.
engagement. But I knew. I was just new. And it was kind of funny because my whole life as a kid, I always thought, I'm going to know the girl I'm going to marry. Like, I'm going to know him. I'm just going to know it because I don't have to like figure it out. I'll just know.
Yeah.
And sure enough, man, that was it. So
That's
crazy.
a cool story. Huh.
And what's really crazy is that her name is Vivian, and I'm named after my dad, who's named after his dad. And so my granddad's name is Louie, and my grandma's name is Vivian.
Oh, boy.
And her middle initial is M, and my Vivian, her middle initial is M.
Wow.
So it's Louie D and Vivian M. Hamner Sr., Louie D and Vivian M. Hamner III. Is that crazy?
That is crazy.
Same name.
Holy cow.
Genealogists, take note.
It was crazy.
There's going to be some people going, I don't know what just happened.
I don't know.
How is this possible? Like, same
The grandparents
name.
and the
Like,
grandkids,
like, yeah, it was
same
crazy.
people.
Same name. So same
Wow.
name. So it's kind of crazy.
Meant to be.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
That's cool.
All right, so now we're in Utah.
So in Utah,
You found the love of your life.
Found the love of my life.
Check. What's next?
Check. I worked with delinquent youth at a residential treatment center because I loved helping people, and did that for a while, and ended up going to school for accounting at UVU, which was, I changed my degree a couple times, but went to school for accounting at UVU. I got a job with Fidelity Investments, which is not Fidelity Title. They're two separate,
Different organizations.
different organizations, and worked there for a couple years. I got fired from Fidelity Investments, and crushed me because I had just gotten a promotion and all the stuff, and they fired me. Long story, but I'm a legend. Like, if you tell people that, when I tell people I work there and that I got fired because of the charitable gift fund, they'll say, "Oh my gosh, that was you."
Oh, really?
They know.
It was me. Yeah, it was
That's
me.
funny.
Anyway, so they had this gift fund. They had this gift fund that if you donated $5,000 or $10,000, they would match it. If you donated $5,000, they'd match it by $2,500, and if you donated $10,000, they'd match it by $7,500.
Okay.
Well, there's a tax loophole that they didn't like, that my brother could, he could gift me $10,000 according to the tax
Law.
Then I would take that $10,000 and I could put it into the account, and then I would get my money. Then I would get $7,500. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I would take that $7,500 and then I could gift it to another charitable gift fund account, which was my brother's. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But they didn't care because of the tax. I was taking accounting at the time, and I went to my tax professor and I said, "Hey,
Can I do this?
here's the account agreement. Here's what it says. Here's what I'm thinking based upon what I just learned." And he said to me, "You just found a loophole that you totally can do that. That's totally legal."
Oh my God.
And so I did it, and not only did I do it, but I would pull a bunch of people in the conference room, like, "Guys,
Here's what we're gonna do.
You can do this and get more money." And so one day I get called in, and they said,
Louie!
and then so one day I'm sitting in my office at Fidelity, and my boss says, "Can you come with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So I walk into this office, and
There's like 16 guys.
there's two attorneys from Boston.
Oh, no.
no.
They were like velociraptors, and they just kept questioning me and all these things. And I said, they're like, "Well, who took the tax donation?" "I did." "Well, who did this?" "I did." "Whose account did it come from?" "My account." Like, I matched all of the things, and they were like, and I said, "Can you tell me what I did wrong?" And they said, "You weren't looking after
The best interest.
best interest of the company." I
Yeah.
said, "But I followed the rules that the company set up." They said, "But you took the rules and you abused them." I said, "But I followed them."
Yeah.
"You abused." I said, "I follow." "You said abuse." I say follow. And they said, "But you told other people." I said, "Because it's a company benefit, and you can do that."
Yeah.
And they're like, "You weren't looking out for us." All this stuff. We never expected that so many people making $40,000 a year could put $10,000 and get matched at $7,500. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They were pissed. Pissed. And my boss said, "You have done," they called it a CLM, a career limiting move. They're like, "You just made this. You made that. And where you're at right now, you'll never go higher than where you're at." And I'm like, "Am I going to get fired?" And they were like, and she said, "I don't know." She says, "But if they fire you, if I'm telling you you're getting fired, then it's going to get a bad mark on your Series 6 and Series 63.
Your
license."
permanent record.
Yeah, your permanent record. So I just said, "Well, I quit."
How about that?
How about that? And they're like, she's like, "That's better for you." And I said, "Okay." So I just quit, And anybody who didn't quit, they fired.
So it was a thing. A lot of people.
A lot of people.
pulled
Yeah,
in.
because they were like, if you did it, then they fired you for doing it. And there was no. But if you took the account agreement and the tax law, and you said, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
That's all they said. You abused the company policy. And I said, well, the company policy says
It's
that you
clearly
can,
written
yeah,
right
I said,
here.
the company policy says you can go out and buy exercise equipment for $250 and get reimbursed. If I told everybody that, would I be in trouble for that? It's the company policy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, they were pissed. But even now, my financial advisor, I said, hey, I was the one with the charitable gift fund. He's like, oh my gosh, you're a legend. Tell me what happened. He's like, they changed everything. And then that September, they fired the guy who was over the charitable gift fund. They fired the guy who created it, like who did that, because the policies, he didn't make it strict enough. And then they changed all of the donation policies and all that kind of stuff. And
As an employer, I would be like, this kid right here, the smart kid, let's promote him. That's not a career limiting move. That's like, good for you, pal.
Don't do it again.
You don't do it. Please stop.
Yeah.
Let's think of some other things we could do that are outside the box, because that's what they need.
It was crazy. But that is what led me to title.
The unanswered prayer.
The unanswered prayer. So I got fired because I just got a promotion. I'd made $30,000 a year for a number of years. And then I just got this promotion. I was supposed to make $50,000 that year.
Oh man, good living.
Yeah. I hit the jackpot, you know? And so I get fired and I cried a lot because they had great benefits too. And all that stuff. And I think with the benefits, it ended up being like $75,000, right? Because the insurance, I mean, I paid $0 to have a baby. Or I paid $20 and that was it. It was crazy. And anyway, so I get into title and that was 03, 04. So in 05, that was 03. No, in 04, I made more money in 04 than I made in 03 at Fidelity. That was May of 03 that I got fired at Fidelity. Then I got in title, but then anyway, long story. I got fired from my first title job. They fired me.
You found a loophole?
Yeah. Another loophole.
Another charitable gift fund?
I got fired. No, I got fired, and I got fired because. Anyway,
let's not talk about it.
Anyway, yeah, I came home and I told Viv, I'm like, I got fired today, and she goes, no, you didn't. She's like, there's no way. You work so hard. There's no way you get fired 2 times in 7 months. That's impossible. And then I started crying, and she goes, okay, you got fired. It was crazy. Yeah, I got blamed for 4 files that had a FHA funding.
Yeah.
And you don't get it paid on time. You have to pay the whole month's interest the next month.
Oh.
So there were 4 files that the
interest was owed.
Yeah, and the manager she said it was my fault, and they weren't my files, but that's how they took it, and the CEO came out and fired me for it.
Wow.
And anyway, it was crazy because when he fired me, I said, so am I getting fired or let go? And he said, if I have to tell you, that's already a problem. And I'm like, well, I just want to know.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, well, let me just say this. He's like, we thought you were going to be a rock star, and you're not. Let's just put it that way. Don't come to work tomorrow. And so I packed up my stuff and walked out, you know.
Dang.
Crazy story. Anyway, but I have all these full circles because right before I sold my title company, so this is in 2019, I'm sitting in church, and church is over, and this guy taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's the guy who fired me.
From the title company?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, how are you? He's like, actually, he went through some really hard times. He went to jail for a while for fraud and some other stuff. And anyway, he comes up and just says, I'm so, I know that happened and I'm sorry. And he goes, I'm here listening to this missionary who's talking because he was teaching me when I was in Vegas and I wanted to hear him. And then he's like, I'd love to go to lunch with you sometime and talk. And it was crazy. We made up and had this full conversation. And anyway, he ended up getting baptized in the LDS church and called me one day and said, will you come to my baptism? And I'm like,
okay.
And my wife's like, the guy who fired you? I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
Can you believe this?
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So then I go back and I'm a part of his baptism and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, it was kind of cool. It was kind of a cool experience to like have that full circle again. You know?
All the way around.
It was weird.
Well, all right. So now we've been fired twice in 7 months, and you're on to your next title because you're like, okay, this is something I can do.
Yeah. So I stick with it.
Let me ask you though, like, what was it about title then that had that young Louie being like, this might be my thing?
Well, actually, I was trying to get out of it because I didn't like it, and I wanted I wanted to do something that was prestigious, because at church there was this guy there. He's like, "Hey, you're a title guy," and I'm like, I do not want to be a title guy.
Title guy. Yeah.
I'm like, this is awful.
Yeah.
And so I had actually applied for the FBI, the CIA. I was applying for all these, the DEA, and getting turned down. That FBI test was crazy hard.
That is a hard test.
It was weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was trying to get out of it. But then finally, I was making good money. I was going to make like 80 or 90 grand, which was almost double than what I was, actually triple what I was making 3 years before.
But what you'd ever made before, yeah.
Yeah. So I was making 90 grand, and I knew I was going to make more the next year, because if I'm making 90 now and it was still good, I'm like, dude, I'm going to make, more. And just then the DEA said, hey, you've passed the security check and all the stuff. And they said, we'd love to have you come do the PT test down in Denver, do this many push-ups and run this fast and do all this stuff. And would love to have you. And then I was like, I was torn, because
what do I do?
I thought, dude, I'm like, how much do you guys pay there? Like $57,000 the first year or something like that. And I'm like, dude, I'm making 90.
Yeah.
Even with benefits, then you'd have to move around. And I just thought, dude, I'm gonna stay here because this is more money. And kind of what I found was that I realized there was a theme in all the jobs I wanted to do. The theme was I wanted to help somebody. Like I wanted to help them where they were in need of help. Originally, I wanted to go into psychology and be a therapist, but when I found out that they made $65,000 a year, with a master's, I'm like, this is no way.
Yeah, with $100,000 in debt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm like, that ain't happening. And then I was going to go into nursing, and just kind of realized that's really not my thing. And then I wanted to go into financial planning, so I went to accounting and went to Fidelity, thinking I was going to do that. But I wanted to help people where they really needed the help, not help people where they didn't think they needed help, but where they really were wanting it.
Yeah.
You call Fidelity because you're like, I really don't know what to do. How do I do this?
Yeah.
You really need help. Does that make sense?
And it's important.
And it's important, yeah. It was important. Like, it was about their life, their health, their financials, right? And then this was about their house, right? Those are the four most important things in your life, you know, right?
Yeah,
like where are you putting your family, And so I realized, like, where I wanted to help people, I could do it. Meaning that I would read a lot of books about psychology and about how to grow a business or how to do this or that. And I thought, I could learn this. And then I get in front of people. I mean, I was closing, I don't know, in the beginning, like 50 deals a month. And that's 100 people. I'm in front of 100 people a month where I have an hour with them, or what, roughly, 45 minutes an hour. I'm like, I can help them in that time with this, and then maybe I can find something to help them with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I thought I might be able to solve it. Anyway, and then as I was getting more and more clients, I would ask them where they were really struggling, and I found out that a lot of people struggled with controlling or with their employees, with their assistants, or getting them to do what they wanted them to do, and making them, And so then I really took a deeper dive into that, thinking, if I could help you solve your biggest problem, which is your assistant that you can't get to do what you want to do, then you would want to work with me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, not only do a good job of this, but like of what I do, but do that too, right?
Sure.
So I read hundreds of books. Like, I say hundreds, but I don't know, a lot of books on that kind of stuff, and I got into a lot of trainings and things like that, and just kept growing and growing my business. And then during the worst economic time of the market, right, in 2008, I was doing more business in 2008 than I was in 2007, and more in 2009 than in 2008. And, so my business was really thriving because I just tried to do a really good job, and then to help people where they were at in that moment, not trying to oversell them or undersell them, but like, what was their biggest pressing thing in their life and in their business right now, than solving that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
sometimes as a title person, I'm solving stupid stuff for them, not really like talking to them about their assistant, like, hey, maybe you ought to try talking to her like this and telling her like this, or maybe, whatever. And so then my business just really started to take off. And so it started to really grow a lot. And then shortly, did that, and then we merged in 2015 with Jeff Polton and Keystone Title. And then just continued in that. Then that allowed me to do more of what instead of being the accounting and the financial and all of that, Jeff kind of did that. And I was able to play in my lane more. And it just really allowed us to recruit and to grow and to become, the title company that we became,
So something I want to share about title. I've been in real estate for 14 years, 13, 14, almost 15 years now. Geez. And the thing that's interesting about title is it's, in my perspective, and I have a little bit of a different perspective where you and I are partners on a business, a title.
JV,
and so I've learned a lot about the business, but the thing that is most revealing when I became a partner in this was that this is strictly a relationship business. They say real estate's strictly a relationship business, and it is. It's very much so. But in title, there's a lot of choices out there, just like in real estate. There's a lot of choices out there. Why would I want to work with Louie? And so what he's telling you is a story of the added value that he was providing to his relationships. And a lot of real estate agents have a transaction coordinator or an assistant that helps with all of the things that's outside of the licensing, and that's usually the hole in the business, is because they're pouring a ton of money into this person and they're doing it their way, or they're having a lot of business owners are good at maybe sales, or they're a good technician, but they're not good at managing people, and that's a different hat. And so it's a tremendous amount of value. You teach a class called Crucial Conversations, and I've taken that class like 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's based on a book, which I would recommend to the listeners. If you haven't read that book, it's a good one to read in your business skill set. But it's those classes and those types of things that makes Louie different in the industry. That makes him the reason that I would want to work with somebody. That makes
That's
sense.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and something that really kind of added in, it kind of pairs into actually this book. Was so interesting is that in 2017, all of 2017, I would wake up every day and I'd have this gnawing feeling that I'm not really quite doing what I should be doing, or I should be stepping up into this bigger version of myself. And every day I'd wake up, literally almost every day I'd wake up in 2017 and just felt like I didn't do everything I should do. When you have something, like your taxes, right?
Yeah.
You got to do them. Then every day you're like, oh shit, I didn't do that. Like, I'll do it tomorrow, but it's gnawing on you because the deadline's coming up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So I had that feeling of like, I'm not being this bigger version of myself, and time's passing. And then at some point I'm dead, or something, or some point that's going to pass and not happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something over your head.
Yeah. So one day, I just remember it was a Sunday because I'd come home from church and went into I had an office at home, and went there and I just prayed, and and the kind of the thought I had was like, I want to be like a Tony Robbins, but not Tony Robbins, but just kind of like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that kind of that kind of person who says, hey, I know stuff and I'm willing to help you, and I've learned a lot of stuff, and everything I've learned, I'm willing to share with you.
Yeah. Come with me. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's go do this. And part of that is because when I was a little kid and I'd watch my dad talk to these other men who dressed a lot nicer than we did, and I would just think, man, I hope you're telling my dad how to make money because we got nothing. And so as a little kid, I was just like, what'd you guys talk about, or what happened? And, I think, is that guy going to give you a job? Or because we were on welfare, I don't know, 80% of my life as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Probably, right? And if that's an exaggeration, 70%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of welfare cheese, regardless.
Exactly. And even to where that's anyway, when I lost my job and I was on WIC for a while, I remember Viv saying, how much longer are we going to have to, when I was making $30,000 a year at my first title job, she's like, how much longer are we going to have to be on WIC? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it was awful. Anyway, so I just kept having this feeling. So I come home, sit at my desk, close the door, and I just said a prayer. And I just said, I keep on having this feeling that I'm supposed to be this person. I don't know what it is. I mean, I kind of have an idea, like I need to step out and do more things, like teaching these classes, which I wasn't doing before. And I just thought, I'll do this, but I'm like, but I just need to know that I'm supposed to do it. I know I'm supposed to do it, but I just need a sign. And I literally said these words. I'm like, give me the book that is the source of all motivation. And in my head, I'm like, what would that be? And I thought, give me the book. And as a 7th grader, I took this Zig Ziglar course called See You at the Top. We had to read this book for 12 weeks and all this stuff. And that just who popped into my head, because I thought, I love Jesus. Zig Ziglar's like Tony Robbins / a preacher, you know?
He really is.
I'm like, and he talks about Jesus a lot. I'm like, I'd do it like Zig Ziglar. And so I literally said these words, give me the book that got Zig Ziglar his start, that inspired him. If you give me that book, I'll do it. And it was like a couple weeks later, this guy who had recently moved to my neighborhood, 6 months prior, I went back and looked it up, 6 months prior, and he comes to my house and says, hey, I need to talk to your kid about scouts. And he goes, this sounds crazy, but I work from home and sitting at my desk at home, and all week I've been seeing this red book, and I've just been thinking, I need you to see it. And he's like, my dad, when I was a kid, my dad would read from us this book, teach us how to be, teach good principles. And he goes, I know you're into Tony Robbins, and this book is so old, you're not even gonna, I'm embarrassed to give it to you, but I can't deny that the fact that I just keep on thinking, I need to give you this book. So I'm like, okay, so I take the book. I'm trying to cut the story down, but I take the book, and I have the thought the next day, bring it to work with you. And I thought, I don't want to, because it's an older book. I don't want to break the binding. And I got to give it back to him because it was an anniversary. It was a wedding present for him when he got married, so he could read the same book to his kids. That makes sense.
It's that important of a book to his family.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay. So but I have this impression, take the book with you. So I take the book, and I go to my first appointment, and I'm sitting in my car, and I just have this thought, you have a spare moment, read the book. And I thought, I'm going to pull this up, and I thought, okay, I'm going to read the book. And so I opened the book, and I'm not lying, the title of that chapter is Possibilities and Spare Moments. And I looked at that, shit.
I was just thinking, I have a spare
moment. Like, literally, I had chills in my neck. I was like, oh my gosh. And so then I'll find this, but so then I just start reading. It's like quotes, these little quotes. So I start reading it, and like the 4th quote down says something like this. For every hour in a man's life, there's a specific work to be done. And when the hour has passed and the work is not done, the opportunity is forever gone. And I read that, and then I just heard this in my head. This is the book you asked for. Now go do what you said you're going to do.
Oh, boy.
And I just started crying. I was just like, oh, my gosh, this is crazy.
Is that the book?
Yeah, this is the book. So I'm sitting there. I'll pull this up. It's crazy, but so I pulled this up. I don't know if you can see it, but so I took a picture. That was the page. You see where
Every hour in a man's life. Yep.
But look at the heading of that book. Do you see where it says Possibilities and Spare Moments? Like, I'm not lying. Like, it's crazy. The story is crazy. So Toby Roberts at City Creek Mortgage, right?
Yeah.
So
Toby and Mike.
So a year ago, so I'm going in more detail, but 1 year, almost to the day prior to this, I was talking to Toby, and I said, hey, Toby, it's going to sound really weird, but I got to tell you something. She goes, what's that? I said, God's going to tell me something one day to tell you, and you're going to have to believe it. And she looked at me like, what are you saying? I go, I don't even know what I'm saying right now, but I'm just telling you, one day I'm going to come to you and tell you something that God told me, and you're going to have to believe it. And she's like, okay. I said, has nothing to do about church, nothing.
Yeah.
I said, she goes, okay. So here I am 1 year later. So I come and I see Toby because we worked in the same office. I said, Toby, come here. And we went in the conference room, and I said, you remember that day, or I told you that? She goes, oh, I remember the shoes I was wearing. She's like,
that was memorable.
It was that memorable. She's like, you just freaked the shit out of me. She's like, I was like, what are you talking about? And then I said, God told me that Zig Ziglar got his start from this book, and that I'm supposed to do my work now. And she's like, oh my gosh. And anyway, she's like, did you search it out? I go, yeah, I've been searching it. I can't find anything that he got his start. So I'm just showing you this. So I end up buying her a copy of this book. And I hear this impression, you have to wrap it in the era that it was written. And so I just had this thought, like, I need to wrap it, like, with twine and wax stamp. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, I bought a wax stamp about a month ago. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that. So just this inspiration, like, I'm not making shit up, like, just this thought. And so because I bought her a copy of this book, because you can find them, like, old copies. There's a used bookstore, you know what I'm saying? You can find these, they're not. Anyway, so I wrap it up. I'm just showing you this. Here's a screenshot. So I wrap it up and give it to her. Okay, so she makes a post about it on Facebook. So the next day I see her and she's like, did you see the guy that made the comment on my post? I'm like, what post? She's like, I posted about the book. Did you see the comment? I'm like, no. She's like, well, you got to read it. And this is the comment.
I have a copy of this book. He wrote it all by hand. The guest room he was in above the barn burned down, and he had to rewrite the entire book. The original positive mental attitude manuscript. Whoever bought this for you is a class freaking act.
Wow. So I said, Toby, what's amazing? Like, I'm a class act, or like, what's, anyway. She's like, you need to contact this guy. And I said, well, where'd you meet him? And she's like, some business mastery thing. I don't know him. She's like, I'm like, well, how would I contact him? She's like, just Facebook message him.
Yeah.
I'm like, and this is an 18. So in 18, I'm like, I'm not going to Facebook message some guy I don't
stranger.
know. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
I don't even call people I don't know. You know, like, have a hard time calling people I don't know for title business, Anyway, she's like, you got to do it. So the next day, I sent him a Facebook message. So check that out.
Jason, I had experience with that book pushing to the front. Curious how you found it. I have been absolutely obsessed with it. I found it through a recommendation from Zig Ziglar. He was one of my early mentors, and he gave me a copy. Everything about that book is universe shifting.
Are you serious?
Dude, serious, no lie. So then I sent him
so this guy had no idea if any reference to Zig Ziglar or anything like that.
No.
Random.
This is the confirmation that this was Zig Ziglar's book.
Zig Ziglar book.
Oh my,
so then,
random
dude, so then I sent him another message. I'm like, can I talk to you, And he goes, yeah, you can. And so he's like, so he doesn't know yet, So every week when I was growing my business, I'd hold this meeting where I'd have the escrow assistants come, and then I would teach them things like how to customer service and all this stuff. And so one day they came and I just said, hey, so I told them this story, what I just told you. And I said, hey, because why I'm telling you the story, because he wants me to call him at 9:00, and that's like in 5 minutes. So I said, I'm going to make the call in front of you guys, and then we're going to see what happens.
Well, okay.
They're like, oh, okay.
Let's do this.
Let's do it. They're like, okay. So then I call the guy. And when I call him, his response is really shocking. So I tell him the same story I just told you. And he says, let me just pull this up. And he says, and he's like, are you effing? Like he said, who the F are you? Is this an effing joke? Are you effing with me? Right? But he was saying the word.
Yeah.
And I had to turn down my phone because I had it on speakerphone, little Bluetooth speaker, and I turned it down because I was like, shoot, this guy's swearing so bad. And so I turned it down, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what.
Why are you upset?
I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And he goes, there's no effing way you know this. He goes, let me say this. There's 7 billion people on the planet right now, and there's probably 50 people that know what I'm about to tell you because Zig Ziglar personally told me this story. You're not going to find it. He goes, but somehow you fucking knew it without meeting him. He goes, and I'm shaking right now. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm like, well, what happened? And he said, I flew out to Texas and met Zig, And he showed me in his office, he had all these portraits of people that changed his life. And he says, on the wall, there's like 50 people. And one of the people on this wall was this black lady. And he goes, do you know why she was on there? I said, nope. And he said, because she was his nanny. Because his dad died when he was 7. And she helped raise him. And he says, I want you to know he personally told me this story. He goes, so I don't know if you're going to find it. I don't know if he ever recorded it in a book. He personally told me the story. And he said, one day, he said, his nanny said, Zig, you and I need to have a special talk, and you need to come down to my room. Or come into my room and have this special talk. And in my mind, the way he told the story, I just thought he was like 10, 11, 12. I don't know how old he was. Maybe in his early teens, I don't know. But he said he pulled him in his room, he pulled him into her room, sat him on his bed, and said, Zig, a couple nights ago, I had a dream that God told me who you were, that you were going to change a lot of people's lives in the world, and that you had a very special role to play. And in that dream, he told me to buy you this book. And you're supposed to study this book so you can be the man who you're supposed to be. And this guy says, he told me that effing story. And somehow you knew it. And you've never met him. You've never talked to me or the other 49 people who know the story. He's like, so however you know that, whatever God told you to do,
Get to work.
you better do it. He goes, and bitch, I got to help you. He goes, this sucks. He literally goes, son of a bitch, I got to help you. He goes, this totally sucks. But dude, I'm all in it for you. And the two assistants were in the room, and they were just like crying. Like They were very emotional. In fact, so today's the anniversary of that. And so Jen Mersch and Tiffany Ung were in that room, and Jen posted this April 18th, 2018, right?
Yeah.
Do you see?
I still have goosebumps from this morning. So grateful I got to witness one of the most amazing and I'm sure life-changing moments in one of my mentors' lives.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I called Toby and said, Toby, he knew. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's why. I didn't take a picture of that. But that was just, anyway, Toby's like, oh my hell, what are you going to do? I'm like, I guess I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to start doing these things, because there's no, that's impossible.
Yeah.
That's
How
weird.
does that even happen?
Yeah, it's weird. So then I went back to the guy that moved into my neighborhood, and I was like, how'd you get to our neighborhood? And he told me the story that they had a house under contract ready to go, and the builder fell through or something like that, fell out of contract. And so then they had to go get another house, and that house was in my neighborhood.
Wow. Meant to be.
Crazy.
Meant to be. What a series of events.
So that brings us. So what is this book?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So if you look this guy up, his name is Orison Swett Marden. If you look him up, he's the founding father of what is today the self-help or the motivational industry. He is the guy.
I've never heard of him.
You've never heard of him?
Yeah.
That's right. You know who was one of his mentors? Or you know who he mentored?
Who?
James Allen. You know him.
Yeah, I know that name.
James Allen mentored from Orison Swett Marden.
And then here, all the way down.
All the way down to Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
There we go. Does
Wow.
that make sense? It's crazy. Yeah. And if you look him up, it'll say he was the original founder of Success Magazine. What it is today, he was the original founder of Success Magazine.
Huh.
And he is considered the founding father of the motivational self-help industry.
And what's the title of this book?
The title of this book is called Pushing to the Front.
To the front.
Pushing to
Let's
the
get
front.
I'm gonna get a picture of that real quick. I know that's something I'm gonna want to do some more research on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that guy is it, and which was crazy. So when I go back and I look at what I wrote down for my prayer was, give me the source of all motivation, and give me the guy who inspired. Give me the book that inspired Zig Ziglar. Both like how would I know to ask that? I don't know to ask that, but that's what that is. Is both of those things.
Interesting.
That
It's pretty
is
crazy.
wild.
It's
What a
crazy.
story, Louie.
Yeah, and so in fact, when the guy gave me that book, I didn't understand it then, but when he said, "Hey, here's this book," I actually thought, I looked at that book and I thought, there's something about this book. like it's weird. I just had a feeling like there's something
gravity
about this.
in the book.
Yeah, like, and again, this is all before that happened, and I'll just show you. Like, I took a picture of that book, so that was the first one of the first editions. So I took a picture of this book because I thought, dude, there's something about this book that is like it's meant for me or something. Like I didn't even know what it was. I took the picture. That was the day before I read it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The day before I took it with me.
Huh.
It was crazy.
Wow.
So that was what led to everything that changed in my business because it made me step up into a role or to a person, like a higher version of myself. Because I thought, well, God wants me to do it. I got proof that He wants me to do it.
Yeah.
There's no way I could know that.
So who do I need to become?
So then who do I need? That I need to become this person, And it was interesting because I even like questioned that this even happened. But I was so grateful that like I went to Toby Roberts even like a year later, and she's like, no, this happened. You can't lie yourself out of this. Keep on doing your work. I'm like, damn it. She's
accountability.
Like, yeah, she's like, I'm not gonna let you. And Jen and Tiffany, who were there, they're like, no, we saw it, we witnessed it, we heard him say all those F words. She's like, we heard that. They're like, no, you got to do your work, and I'm like, shit, because. It's funny how even when you feel called to it, like you still, like in biblical text, right? Moses tried to get out of his job.
Me?
Yeah.
Me, Lord?
Yeah, me. I can't, I
have a speech impediment.
Yeah, that's right. Like we all try to get out of our jobs.
Yeah.
I don't care how much we think we're actually doing it. We all still try to get out of it. Because I feel myself even now, like, I don't want to, am I still going to step up to higher? Because there's another level, and am I really going to do that? I don't want to. But literally, when this post came up on Facebook as a reminder, I'm like, shit, I got to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I have to, like, there is a version of myself that exists that 5 years from now, if I don't do it, I'm going to regret it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You have a calling.
Yeah.
You have a calling that you can't deny.
Yeah. Like, which is, yeah. And, I was going to say when this happened, Jen Mersh said this to me. She's like, Louie, let me be honest with you. You always say these amazing stories, and sometimes I'm thinking, did that really happen? She's like, but shit, I saw this one.
I witnessed it.
She's like, so I believe all the others. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's no way. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. She's like, how did this happen? She's like, so I go, Jen, actually, this is probably the biggest one. She's like, I'm glad I was there for the biggest one,
Wow.
That is crazy.
Anyways, crazy
Cool story. Louie. Wow. Here's the thing about Louie. Every time I'm around him, I walk out of there just like scratching my head like, man, I got a journal about this. I'm going to have to write some stuff down. It's always good stuff, Louie.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thanks.
sharing that.
Yeah.
So here we are. And when I met you, you weren't into cold plunging and breath work, and you've kind of turned into this crazy cool hippie.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You've got sound bowls in your garage.
Yeah.
You've turned into, it's been an interesting journey to watch you go from this kind of a corporate person to who you are today. Like what was the step that kind of got you into the breath work and this modality of our bodies and these things? I find that interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to know.
I'm glad you asked that. I don't know why, but today I'm like, I feel like I know the answer better than I ever have. And the one thing that I think I told you before, like I have ADD really bad. And so sometimes when you have that, you get sidetracked and doing stupid shit. And you're like, why am I doing this?
You're preaching to the choir on this side of the
Okay,
table.
yeah. And you're like, I'm supposed to be mowing the lawn, and I'm worried about these nails and the screw in this door, and I can't figure it out. And you're like,
Off track.
But like, as hard as that is, and I think we all do this, ADD or non-ADD, right? But there's a phrase that I never really understood until probably the last 6 months. I'm understanding it more and more. And the phrase is, for you to become who you are supposed to become, like you're supposed to follow your bliss. And it's not what's fun. Bliss is when you lose track of what's happening. And you're just really into and you're just connected to yourself.
The flow state.
Yeah.
You're in the vortex.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're in this flow of this stuff. You're like, dude, I just love this. And it could be scrubbing the toilet or whatever, right? And what is interesting is when you ask that question, I realized like I went from those things because I went from corporate business owner, sold my company. You know, I could retire when I was 49. And I went from all of that to, like you said, sound bowls to a hippie. And Spring says you went from a bishop to a hippie. How'd you do that?
How'd that happen?
What happened to you?
That's a better question than I had.
What did that, how did you do that? But and to me, the answer is just like following what was my bliss. Following what really made more of me come out. But how I got there, Spring was the one who said, "Hey, this guy comes to Salt Lake a couple times a year from Sedona, and he's doing breathwork, and you should go do it." I'm like, "How long is it?" And she's like, 2 hours. And I'm thinking, how do you do that for 2 hours? Like, I can barely focus for 30 minutes on something, like all my strength, and it's interesting just how we get there. But because actually, my wife and I got into a fight that morning. And then I was thinking, like, how do you recover from this? You do something. And I thought, what could we do that's unusual, that kind of break our pattern, get back into it? And I was talking to Spring that morning, and she's like, you should go do that breath work. She was telling me again, because she told me the day before. I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And I kind of think about this, right? Oh, when I met my wife over the phone and asked her out, she had a cold, and so her voice was like scratchy, like sexy and rough and all that. And I always think, and I told her this, if you didn't have a cold, I wouldn't have asked you out. Literally, if you didn't have a cold, your voice was like intriguing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
hello.
Well, not like that. Rob makes it sound terrible. I'm running.
Hello, Louie.
I don't know.
I'm in. That's funny.
But so we kind of got into this, marital fight, right? This that you get to, and then you're like, how do I get out of it? And we went and did this breath work, and so we went, and I had this incredible experience that really, rocked my world, and it was so spiritual. Like, I got in the car afterwards, and I just started crying, and took a few minutes, I don't know, 3 or 5 minutes to kind of get in control of my emotions, because it was like,
opened you up.
Opened me up, and I'm like, and Viv goes, what happened? I'm like, I talked to God, literally, I've heard things from this book. I've heard this because this was after this book, and I'm like, no, this was crazy to me, and it led me down the path of continuing to follow it because it was so impactful, and so Spring got me into that, and I just started, and I tracked Zach down and asked him if he could coach me on how to teach people to do this, and he didn't do that at the time, but said he would teach me if I, maybe in 6 months or something like that. And 6 months later, he called me up and said, hey, I'll do it, and this is what it's going to cost. And then I kind of felt stupid, honestly, doing that. I kind of felt like Jack and the Beanstalk. Like, I got this money, I'm supposed to go buy this, and I want to buy these magic beans, but I don't know what I should do, And so I even called up Spring again and said, should I go do this training, or is there a better person to do it with? She goes, no, Zach is ridiculous. He's amazing. The guy's the real deal. Go do it with him. I'm like, all right. And so I signed up.
To Sedona you go.
Yeah, Beverly Hillbillies again. I packed up the truck and moved to Beverly.
Pinto, let's go.
That's right. And so I did that and had these incredible experiences doing breath work during that training, and really came back a changed person, honestly. And Viv would, saw it, and she's like, you need to keep on doing this because you need to get better, And so those experiences, and then watching how impactful it had been for, I would say, 90% of the people that come and do it have this profound experience. Like, whether it's spiritual or whether it's just very relaxing to their body, they're like, 100%, I want to come back. Not over 90% other people say, I want to come back. And so then it was like, I wanted to help people where they needed help. Same thing, right? And so I found this as another way of being able to help people where they really wanted help. And so I just kept pursuing it. And like anything, like I did in title, like in anything, or that you do in anything that you do, you kind of find out, look at how you can make it better, like how you can get, how you can make things. Anyway, so I did something with sound bowls, or I went somewhere and my wife took me to a sound bowl bath or something, and I thought, why don't I play those during the breath work? Because I would have time. I'm not really doing anything. So I bought those and thought, because they were impactful. And so just kept on doing it. And then I was watching the results of people. And in the beginning, sometimes there was only 2 people showing up, sometimes 1. And it was the person that worked for me, they were showing up and doing it. But I just kept showing up every week just because I believed in it. And it was changing me. And I thought, if it's changing me, it has to be changing people who come. And so just kept doing it and watching it grow as far as people that would come to do it and what they would experience. And it's a good way to find people who are like weird, like you. It's,
me.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
it's
like
good.
you.
It's like
100%.
100%. So it was a good way to find. It was a good way, because breathwork is it's something that is.
It's medicine.
Yeah, it's medicine. It really is. It's the medicine that people don't know how to ask for, that everybody wish they had.
Well put.
Yeah.
I want to talk about breathwork for a second for those of us who haven't done very much in the arena of breathwork, because it's one of those things that's getting thrown around a lot these days. Like, I went to a thing and they did a sound bath, and what does that even mean? A lot of people haven't done it, have never done breathwork. Breathwork, let's just talk a little bit about what the modality looks like. If I were to show up to one of your classes, could I expect?
Yeah. Well, what you could expect is, one, just a safe place to be who you are. Like, nobody's going to judge you. And that's the hard thing. When you come to do something you don't know,
You're a little fearful.
you're fearful. You're like, if it was basketball, or, even if you do know how to play basketball, but you don't know the people, you're like, oh, are these people going to accept me? Or are they going to think I'm not good enough? Or, so it's an environment where there really is just no judgment. Like, you're just showing up, and we don't really care who you are, what you look like, and or whether you've done this one time or 100 times. You're just here to be here, you know. So what it looks like is you come in and we kind of teach you then how to do the breathing practice, which this practice is most resembles what would be the rebirthing style of breathing. And let me say this, there's, I don't know how many, but 100 different styles of breath work that you can do.
Oh, yeah.
And every style has a specific purpose behind it. Wim Hof, his stuff, there's a specific purpose for the things that he does. And this style, this practice, which is rebirthing, which is it's a breath work that's done all through the mouth. Yeah, I mean, it can be done through the nose, but in the beginning, you're in the beginning practicing of it, you're doing it through the mouth, and it's an intentional inhale at the pace of what would be a relaxed exhale.
So give us an example.
So so you just nice and slow breathing, it would go.
Intentional breathing. Now, as he's doing this, I want you to think how often you think about your breathing. You never think about your breathing. We're all unconsciously breathing, and I would imagine that most people's lung capacity, we're using 30 or 40%. The more stressed we become, the shallower our breathing becomes. One of the things that you do, you teach breathing.
I teach breathing to the baseball
players because it's so important in controlling your power. What never occurred to me was I've most of my life walked around going, because I am always about fight or flight. I'm always in kind of a stressful situation. I've had stressful jobs. My job now is stressful. I've been in law enforcement, and I was in all these military positions, and it's stress. And I never realized that I've never breathed. And I think most people would surprisingly find the same thing. Yeah.
So when you take a deep breath in, and when you do that, when you do it, if your shoulders go up, you're stressful breathing. That is breathing through your chest, which is your sympathetic system, your sympathetic system is supposed to match your environment, right? So if your environment's stressful, now you're going to be geared to handle the stress, right? But parasympathetic breathing, which is through your belly, your diaphragm, that resets your body, puts it in its recovery mode, and puts you in a very relaxed state. And, flow state, and I'm actually in a course with Stephen Kotler, who wrote Catching or Stealing Fire with Jamie Wheel.
Oh, yeah, I've read that.
So he does a flow state, certified flow state coach training that I'm in right now.
Wow.
And it's interesting because at the beginning of every training that we do 5 rounds of breathing, nice and slow. He's like, because what they say is that in order to unlock flow, you have to be relaxed.
Yeah.
You can't be wound up. So they say in order to unlock flow in this teaching environment, we need to unwind you. So we're going to spend the first 5 minutes breathing, getting you back in a relaxed state so that you can be in a flow state so we can get the most out of everybody in this class. And I found it really helpful, like just 5 minutes. It was like 5 breaths. She's like, let's just do 5 breaths. Just 5 breaths. I'm like, wow, 5 breaths. Like, I'm pretty relaxed after 5 breaths. That's actually pretty good,
The thing that's interesting about this is that you don't know. I had a yogi that I was seeing for a while last year, a counselor, and I'd go to his office and I'd roll in there right on time. I had come from an appointment and I had an appointment right afterward. This is my life. I'm like, we're booked. I load my days where if I'm 5 minutes late this morning, I'm going to be 5 minutes late this evening because I'm going to be boom, boom, boom all day. And I would get in there, and before we'd even start talking, he'd be like, okay. And he would do this parasympathetic breathing, and it would be annoying. I'm like, no, I got shit I need to talk about.
Let's get this done.
Yeah, I got some stuff to do. I had an agenda, and we'd do the breathing, and afterwards I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
You know what's so crazy about this is like you're putting a whole language on top of something that I found. The way that I tell the boys and the way that I found it was baseball.
Baseball coach here.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to. When I was playing, I have that ADD thing, so I was always overthinking. Well, somewhere along the line, I found out there's only 2 ways to actually occupy your brain. You either can count, and anybody that's been counting money, and somebody says something to you, and you get like, and you forget where you're at.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or manipulating your breath actually occupies your brain.
Yeah.
So what I found is like doing these breaths that you're talking about before a meeting, this is how I would calm myself to stop thinking when I would step up to bat. Yeah. And these high school boys, this is now our new mantra. We do breathwork to go into taking at bat. It's wild how powerful and how relaxed, and it calms them down. Or that as the at bat's going, that strike 2, oh boy, take a deep breath. It's fine. Deep breath. Calm down. You got this. Yeah. It's powerful stuff.
100%. Yeah.
So the breath work that Louie's doing, one step further, this rebirth breathing, you're breathing pretty fast, and you, and the ones that I've done with you, you kind of lead by breathing. You're not saying in and now out and now in and now out. Yeah. You're kind of like, you're listening to his rhythm and you're following along in his breath, and your body starts to do things that you didn't think it would do. You start to almost seize up a little bit. I get nervous about it and I start moving around. I've got to I'll get over on my hands and knees and I'll stretch out, and my body will start telling me like, you're really tense here. Like the back of your legs and your lower back are tight. And so my body starts really indicating to me all of these messages that I'm too busy to hear. But when I start breathing, all of a sudden my body is like, listen to me. And I've seen people, because I'll open up my eyes. I'm a peeker, and I probably should get deeper into my own breath. But people are there. What is that called?
It's called tetany. Yeah, it's called tetany. It's a tightening of your muscles when there's a change in your pH. That it's pretty abrupt. There's a tightening that your muscles, because of the pH balance changes, that you experience. But what I've noticed is that tetany shows up in various parts of your body. Like, it's not going to show up really the same place every time. And it shows up where it needs to be healed. There's a book called Our Body Keeps the Score, and it talks about how we hold trauma, pain in our body, in certain areas of the body. It's kind of like a dashboard light of a car, is that, your shoulder might be hurting for no reason. You're like, why is my shoulder hurting? But your left shoulder has to deal with your life purpose. And and you feel like you're shouldering the burden of that. And you're like, oh, and you look this up and you're like, oh, that's why my left shoulder's hurting. But it literally is that thought, right? It's that thought. And so what I've noticed is that people will experience tetany where they have pain in their life.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? Because that theme of that pain is located somewhere else in your body.
Where you're storing it.
Yeah, you're storing it. So there's a book called The Healing Question Guide by Wendy Jensen. And I came across this book 5 years ago, and I don't know how I did, but it was random. And what it does is, like, if you have a pain in your right shoulder, then you would look up right shoulder. And then there's a list of questions, and those questions are, like, on point. I mean, I'll just tell you this. I had a guy that was, like, in his mid-60s that thought breathwork was bullshit. And he came and did it, and he's like, okay, let me just tell you something. The whole left side of my body was like, just feel like it's out of alignment of my right side. Somehow it was doing this. And so I opened that book, left side, and I'm like, hey, read these questions. And he looked at that and he looked at that, read those questions and goes, son of a bitch, how would she know the answer? Like, how would she know that's what I'm going through? I'm like, your body's like a dashboard light. It's like, can you tell the oil light's on? Yep. Well, the left side of your body has to deal with the feminine energy in your body. And he's like, dude, give me this book. Where do I get this book? You know? This guy was like a skeptic, and
now he's a believer.
He was converted like in 5 seconds after reading. He was just like, oh my gosh. But that book, so what I notice is, Rob might come and have tetany in his elbow or in his, right knee. And then he looks up right knee and he's like, oh yeah, that's what I've been struggling with the last couple of weeks. It's been right there. So tetany isn't just random, although it, because physiologically and, chemically you can explain why you experience tetany.
It's random like magic.
Yeah,
you don't understand what's happening.
You can say, well, it's because there's a pH change and there's less CO2 and more oxygen, so that change does this or whatever, or there's more CO2 and less oxygen, so that change causes tetany. I'm like, yeah, but how come it was in your right finger today and last week it was in your right foot? And today, or then 2 weeks ago, you had it in your left shoulder.
Interesting.
You're like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Well,
there's a message here.
But you look it up and then those questions match up to their life, what they're experiencing in their life. And so it's kind of...
I got to give me this book.
Dude, the book is crazy.
Now.
Yeah, it's crazy good.
The last time I did it, it was in my jaw.
You feel it in your jaw?
It was in my
Look
jaw.
it up.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, as you're doing the breath work, in my experience, there's been a tremendous healing. And I say that because it slows me down, it centers me, it gets clarity. After I do my breath work, I can sit there for a minute, and I actually feel like I'm receiving some very clear messages, not just from my body, but from the universe is dropping in like, hey, you need to call your daughter. Like very, very distinct, clear messages. And I've always struggled with, and I'm air quoting now, prayer, because prayer to me, those me just talking and going on and going around. Yeah, I got to get that. I got to get me that. But in the breath work there afterward, there's just such a tremendous clarity that I can actually hear the messages that have probably been pounding on my brain for days. And I'm just so busy. I'm the kind of person that can slam my finger in the door and wonder when did that happen? I've been bleeding out my finger all day. You know what I mean? Because I'm just going, doing, and being, but I'm not ever in my body. I'm not present. Yeah. And that's the medicine that really has been good for me. Everybody else has different experiences. The first time I did it with you, I had just come back from a pretty strong spiritual experience. And I just remember curling up and feeling incredibly whole and incredibly well. It's hard to explain well, but I felt like it's going to be okay. If you could imagine arms being put around you, it's going to be all right. It's going to work out. And that kind of messaging is something that people go their whole lives to church to get. Yeah. And I was having this warm spiritual experience, and you can put labels all over it depending on your dogma and your how you were raised, but it's undeniable. And when I'm doing breath work, and I go in and out of the practice, I'll do it for periods of time, and I'm incredibly focused and centered and driven and getting things done. And then it's like taking medicine where I'm like, I got this. I don't need to do it this morning. And I'll go for 2 days and 3 days and a week will go by and I won't do it. And I drift back into my illusions of insanity, my illusions of control, my illusion of
that's perfectly said.
of significance. And they're bullshit illusions. They're all lies. And when I'm doing my breath work and I'm getting centered, man, I'm much more connected to my wife. I'm much more connected to me. I'm much more connected to my kids and my friends, my business, my leadership, all of the things that I have to do get done well.
Yeah,
or better. Can I say better?
Better. Yeah, I love that too because something that I teach in my practice is I speak Greek, and I thought it was bullshit that I went to Greece, But what I love about it is that Greek, it's still the same language.
Yeah.
And what I love about Greek is that the words in Greek mean what they say they mean. So, just for example, as a missionary, you would say baptize. And in Greek, baptize means submerge. It doesn't mean put water on you. The word means to submerge. I'm going to submerge you. It's not baptism like spiritual. It's really, we should say submerge because that's what it means in Greek, right? Anyway, the word for breath in Greek is spirit, or for the word spirit in Greek is breath. So I would say the holy breath is here.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So you would say the holy breath is here. And then, you would use the word inspiration. And the word inspiration means God's breath. So here's how I'd say it. The holy breath is here. And now I have God's breath. And I would like to share with you what God's breath wants you to know.
Wow.
And they would say, okay, if you have God's breath, speak it.
Let me hear it.
That's how they say, speak it.
Speak it.
Say it.
Yeah.
Legitate. They're like, say it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. I have God's breath. Here's what it's saying.
Wow.
Then they'd say, get the hell out of my house. They're like, what happened? You just said to say it.
Yeah.
What was going on? No, but so to me, that's kind of crazy. And the other day when I was doing breath work, I had to explain that. And then, I always say that, we say breath work, but like you explained it. You're like, for those of you that don't know, breath work is this. In Greek, we would say spirit work. It's spirit work, right? And so in the Bible where it says God did breathe into man his spirit, the breath of life, like in Greek, it's like, and God did breathe into man his breath, the breath of life.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? Or the spirit. So my point is that we were doing this practice the other day, and I just said, I would normally say, listen to the sound of your breath going in and out. And then I said, listen to the sound of your soul going in and out. In and out. And I'm like, I got emotional. I'm like, and I said it again, listen to the sound of your spirit going in and out of your body. In and out. How does it feel when it goes in and out? Notice how good it feels when your spirit can freely go in and out of your body. And I was saying that, I'm like, oh dude, this is awesome. That's
what it means.
That's what it means. That's why it's so calming, so focusing. So when you said I get all these messages, well, of course, because you've paid attention to your spirit.
Yeah.
Like, and when you're paying attention to that, there's everything It makes everything better,
And it's interesting that you should. That really resonates with me, Louie, because when my spirit has a chance, it's like, finally. Listen. I've been trying to get a hold of you for weeks.
You never listen to me.
I've been calling. You're never home.
You're like, and you don't listen to Annie, and you don't listen to me.
La, 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 la.
You're like,
illusions for me, please. That's amazing. So you do this breath work, and afterwards you go outside, and the sky is clear. The birds are singing. Even I did it in the early mornings with you in the dead of winter, and walking outside and just seeing the snow on the mountains and the sun coming up and the clouds and just clarity, just visual clarity, spiritual clarity all the way around. And I'm going to sound like a little bit of a religious zealot because I do believe that it's of the things I've tried, fasting and praying and all of the psychedelics that I've sampled in my life, there's nothing as powerful as your own breath.
That's amazing.
And you know what's so interesting? I had a person come a couple weeks ago, and they said, I don't know if I should be doing this because I think it's going to make me question everything in my life. And I'm like, it should.
Yeah.
Like, this is why you should do it.
Yeah.
Because you should
Ask
and find out and know. And like, how could your breath lead you astray?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if you can't trust your breath,
Yeah.
if you can't
This
trust,
isn't synthetic.
yeah,
This
I'm
isn't
not, no one's making you, he's like, but I felt like I was on everything I've heard about drugs. It felt like drugs. And I'm like, well, drugs is the counterfeit of your breath.
It's
That makes-
not.
but you know what I mean?
I'm going to tell you it's not.
Well, I'm just-
the breath is its own medicine. There's nothing
Well,
comparable.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
but it's just what I mean by counterfeit. Not that it's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but it's just not your breath. It's just
Yeah, it's not.
It's just not. It's
Yeah.
just not. It's like it's something like it, but you can't.
Yeah.
And
it's not apples and oranges. It's
No.
apples and steak. It's completely
there you
different.
go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's the eternal. It's the truth. It's who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing.
yeah.
Doing the breath work, and then you're incorporating now sound bowls when we can talk about the strength of different frequencies in your body and in the room. All of these different things have are powerful things. They're all big medicine, is what I like to call it in my journey through this life. As you're doing these, you also have incorporated cold plunging. Mm-hmm. We've talked a little bit about cold plunging on the podcast. I love to cold plunge. I got a big old trough in my backyard. Yeah. I actually plunged the other day, and it's getting so warm outside. I didn't have to break it with the axe.
Finally.
And I got in there, and I'm
Finally.
like,
He's like a Viking.
yeah. And I got in there, and I'm like, this is too warm. I'm not.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not miserably uncomfortable, and I think that I've been getting used to like jumping in with the ice cubes for so long now that it's probably to a reasonable temperature. Louie has a very nice cold plunge tub with a thermostat that cools the water to the right temperature, and
Not just ice floating on top.
Yeah.
Sand.
yeah. My neighbors are like, oh, there goes Rob again in his robe with an axe out in his backyard.
I think it's the crying that they're really complaining about.
Yeah. And it's a great tub, but what temperature do you plunge at?
45, roughly 45. Sometimes I kind of fluctuate it, so I just don't get used to it.
Yeah.
So, but 45 to 43, or 42, somewhere between there.
The thing that Louie does differently that I don't do is Louie gets fully submerged. He activates his is it the vagus nerve. When you have to get your lip in the water. So I didn't know this until I met you, or until we did this together. And so when Louie gets in, he gets all the way in underwater, stays under there,
Just for about 10 seconds or so.
which is a long time.
Yeah.
When the water's that cold, that's a long time. Because usually when you jump in the water, the first thing you do is let's go to the breathing again. And I'll get into the water. I have a hard time getting my hands and my melon under the water, and he's just right in there like it's a Jacques Cousteau looking for treasure. And I'm just like, what are you doing? But he comes out, and so I haven't done that. Why is that so important to you?
I listened to that podcast by Andrew Huberman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, and he talks about how
His name keeps coming up in our podcast.
He talks about how your upper lip is like the thermostat for your body, that if your upper lip is cold, your body will start to heat up immediately. He said, so if you take a bag of ice, even in the dead of winter, or, in the dead of winter or summer, and he's like, and you put the bag of ice on your thermostat, your heater's going to kick on even in the dead of summer. So he said, when this is cold, when this is properly stimulated, then your body just starts to heat up faster. The other thing I do it is because he talks about just building up grit. And to build up grit, he's like, you should have 3 walls that you don't want to do, 3 things you don't want to do.
Hard things.
Hard things. And I don't want to put my head underneath there, really. So I thought, this is my one thing I'm going to do. I mean, it's already hard to get in, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't get used to it.
Never.
I look at that today. I looked at it. I'm like, I just can't do it today. It's not the day. I'm like, this is not the day. And my mind is, and I can tell when I really don't want to get in that my mental state is not very strong because I'm like, I look at it. I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing that today. There's no way in the world. Like, so you just get 3 things that you don't want to do. So sometimes, that to me, it's dunking, and then it's wiggling around when you're in there because you hold still, and there's a thermal layer of heat around your body. You're like, oh, this feels so good. And then you move a little bit. You're like, oh, don't move.
Yeah. You don't really know that it's there until you try to move. You think, oh, I'm freezing. And then you like wiggle your arms like, oh.
Yeah.
It'd be colder.
That water just next to me is colder still.
But the other reason why I dunk my head is because when I do that, that's the coldest I will be. And so the minute I come up, I feel like, oh, I'm getting, psychologically, I'm getting warmer.
You're already warming up.
I'm warming up. Like I'm warmer because I was underneath,
So is it right when you go in, head under?
Yeah. So I just, I kind of like cross my legs and then push back and force my head under.
You got to forgive me.
Oh, go. Hurry up.
And edit. Sorry, Louie.
No Dr. Pepper for you.
All right. And so
we're back.
And we're back. So you said you do 3 hard things every day. And the first one you said was cold plunge, but you getting your head under the water.
Yeah, getting head underwater, wiggling, like
in
one
the water.
time, yeah. And then like when there's 30 seconds left, because my arms are like this, I'll lift up and let it go underneath my armpits, and it hurts like a mother to go under. It feels like somebody put a shovel handle in your armpit. You're just like, it hurts so bad, and I'll do that like for the last 30 seconds. Or if I don't do that, then I dunk to get out.
Okay. And so
how long are you in there total?
I mean, some days 3 minutes, some days 5 minutes, just, but at least 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got a song. I actually play the song. I use the song every morning. That one you sent over to me.
Oh yeah.
With the Indian.
Yeah.
One, man.
Yeah.
It's like 4 minutes and 3 seconds long.
And it's
so
perfect.
I like get ready to go. I get my tub uncovered and I get my robe off and my flippers off, my flip flops, and hit play and run and jump in there because I can't. As you were saying, it's not like I'm going to ease into the tub.
Yeah.
No. I'm all the way in,
you
right
just
up
gotta
to
jump into it,
to my whiskers, and then it's game on, and the song plays, and it's got a really great kind of a smooth rhythm, but there's an Indian that's kind of doing like like a singing, and then the next thing you know it's over, like you're out. The 4 minutes goes really quick because the song kind of like takes you through it.
Trance.
Yeah, it does. It puts you kind of in a trance a little bit. Because I listen to it, I'm like, oh,
It's over already.
all right,
It's time
I'm
to get out.
Here. Like,
Yeah.
so-
The other thing I do when I'm in the cold plunge is I'll do a couple of my my mantras. I am worthy. I am loved. I am safe. I am. I will do these mantras, and as I get out, I really feel like I've kind of gone deep with those things.
Yeah.
When you get in, do you do a breath work? Do you do a practice of breath?
No. So before I get in, I do I kind of over breathe so that when I get in, I'm not going.
Yeah.
So I kind of will go. I'll do that for about 30 seconds. So then when I get in, my body's not trying to catch up. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I kind of do that. But I do, sometimes I play that, there's a song, it's from Sanskrit, and it says Sate Nam, which means I am truth. So sometimes I'll play that song and just the whole time I'm in, I just say, I am truth, I am truth. I'm like, and nothing can hurt the truth.
No.
I'm like, nothing, you can't hurt me. This can't hurt me.
It's undeniable.
You can't hurt the truth.
Yeah.
Nothing hurts the truth. And, you've done Tony Robbins where you walked on fire.
Yeah.
So, and he has you say a mantra when you're walking on fire. You're saying cool moss, cool moss, cool moss. And you're saying that to kind of override your brain thinking,
I'm burning. I'm burning.
Yeah,
I'm
hot
burning.
coals, hot coals.
Yeah.
So in the very beginning, I would get in and just say, I'm on fire, I am on fire, I'm on, because the tingling and all that feels like fire.
Yeah.
I'm just like, so I just go, I am on fire, I am on fire. So I used to just get in and just say that. And then I started playing music. But I love that Indian song. That song is so good.
It is, and it's perfect timing. I have a few friends at Cold Plunge, and I've given it to them. I'm like, tomorrow morning,
do this song.
And they'll like text me back, that was perfect.
Yeah, there's something about that song that just makes you feel like nothing matters when you're, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You can get through it.
Yeah,
So,
feels really good. It's a great one.
It's a great song.
If you want it, I'll shoot it over
Yeah,
to
will
you.
you please?
Yeah.
Rob knows all the words.
Yeah. Hey. Oh man.
It's great lyrics.
What else do you do in the morning to create a day of success? I know you and I kind of spent some time in a culture where it was win the morning, win the day.
Yeah.
And so can we talk a little bit about what you're doing to win your day in the morning?
I mean, to be honest, that's been a struggle for me recently, like going back to winning the mornings, just selling the company and stuff and kind of branding myself, rediscovering and creating what I want to do and be. And that's been kind of hard for me a little
Let's
bit.
talk about that for a second, because
Yeah.
you are, first you didn't want to be the title guy.
Yeah.
And then you were
Yeah.
the title guy.
That's right.
And now what are you? Like, as a man, we define ourselves by what we do. This is who I am. And I know that that's not, you're not that shallow. You're not like, I am title.
Yeah, yeah.
You know who you are, your identity. But what's the redefinition look like? Because what are we doing?
Yeah. If I were to say that, I would say I'm a liberator. Like, that's what I would say that I am. And that I don't, and so, because we get stuck in ideas of who we are.
Yeah, as
And-
men, for sure.
Yeah, and as men, yeah, because we have to battle something, right? There's
The hill to charge.
yeah, what's his name says there's three things a man needs, right? A battle to fight, an adventure to go on, and a princess by his side.
Yeah.
And if he has those three things, then he's happy.
He is a man.
He's happy.
Yeah.
That he's satisfied,
Yeah.
And so that battle, I've been wondering, that battle really is, for me right now, is stepping into a bigger version of myself. That's the battle I'm kind of fighting every day. Like, am I really going to, who I am, and can I really go
Level up.
level up?
And what does that mean?
And what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what does it even mean for me? And so I'm still really trying to, honestly, kind of defining that, because I go into work every day and it's not, I love the people I work with.
Yeah.
And I love doing it.
But you're not in survival mode anymore.
Yeah. I'm not survival mode, and it's not like game changing for me. And I feel like I'm helping them, I get to help the people that I work with, but it's a, kind of like trying to find the eye of the tiger in my life again, right? Trying to really dial in what that is and who I am and what I'm moving forward in. So I've kind of been, honestly, in the morning, just kind of following my bliss in a way. And what that has kind of led me to believe, or to get to, is that left to my own devices, left, without a real strong cause, intention, I'm not going to become the best version of myself. Like, I'm not going to push myself to do things that are uncomfortable unless I can have a clear goal of what that is. Because doing things that are uncomfortable, we don't want to do them without a purpose behind them.
Sure.
Does that make, what I mean?
Why would I do that?
Yeah. So, so what I found is that in the morning, when I wake up, that if I want to first satisfy, I want to feel me in the morning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I want to see if I can find who I am. Like, what do I find joy in? What do I enjoy? What do I want to experience today? And so I'm not winning the morning. I guess I'm not winning the morning like I used to, where it was running, all these things. I still will do the cold plunge, but I look at it as like I'm trying to win the morning by what makes me happy, what makes me and the best version of myself really kind of show up, as opposed to I have to do these things to get that person to come out. Does that make sense? Almost like the Hulk has to get mad to get the Hulk out, but could he get the Hulk out without having to get mad?
Yeah.
And I think, to me, that's how I look at it, is like, can I get this person to come out without having to push the limits, to go running, to do all these things, and as opposed to just enjoying what I'm doing.
So you're in a transition
I'm
period.
in a transition period, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do wake up, and I still wake up early every day. And sometimes I'll just sit and just think. Like, I'll sit and I'll watch a video that is inspiring to me, that makes me cry, and think, why am I crying about this? And because this person never thought they could be this, and they are doing it, or like on American Idol or something like that. And I'm like, that's inspiring to me. So then I look at it and go, what is it today that I don't think I can do, but I would cry if I could do it? Does that make sense? If people recognize me as that, they would get me emotional, like this little girl crying because everybody's cheering, giving her the golden buzzer. Something she never thought she could do. What is it today that if I were to do that would get me emotional? And then so to me, that's how I kind of win the morning. I kind of look at that and think, what is that thing that I could do that would make me feel that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a great question for us to ask. Who or what should I be doing today that would help me be the most authentic version of myself? Well, who am I today? What am I doing today that matters?
Yeah, and when I do that, like I kind of imagine when I do that and become that person, I kind of imagine that there's somebody sitting there like a Simon Cowell or whatever that's going to hit this golden buzzer like, dude, you're totally your best version, most authentic version of yourself, golden buzzer.
Yeah.
You win.
You win. You're through.
Yeah, and I'm like, I did it. Like, that's what I'm trying to get to. And I realize, like, if I can get to that, like, what I'm created to be, then I'm going to achieve exactly what I needed to achieve because I'm authentically who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of like if you're an apple tree and you're not trying to be the apple tree, well, then you're never going to make apples.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so who is that, right? So I kind of look at it as like we all have this fruit that we're supposed to bear. Like, am I bearing the fruit that I was designed to bear? And do I love when I do it, or am I ashamed of it? Or do I think my fruit, well, that's better. I'd rather have, watermelon than what I got or whatever it is. And so I look at it as like, can I be happy with who I am, and what does it look like? And I need to acknowledge myself for being that, and not look for outside validation of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a creator, Louie, if you could create today the thing that today, I'm talking about just today, the thing that would make that happen, that what we were just discussing, what does a creation look like for you? What would you create? Because if I were to put a word to define Louie Hamner, it would be a creator. I've seen you create some amazing things, and here we are. What is that? What does it look like? Is my question not very clear?
Yeah, I think it is. So I think if I'm saying it right, like I'm actually looking at doing a podcast that is on this theme of like you finding your purpose. Like your purpose is really found in your authenticity. That's your purpose.
Yeah. Why were you made? What are you here for?
Yeah, what are you made here for? Why were you made? Like, and for people to say, I can say I'm authentically living who I am, and I can see the fruit that I authentically just create. I didn't know I do all this because here's the thing. What you're in Greek, that's what I love about Greek. The word for passion in Greek means pain. So if I were to ask you, hey, Rob, what are you passionate about? You might say motorcycles. But it's because we think of the word as like what you enjoy, and passion is not about joy.
No,
it's about pain. So you love the thrill and the pain of a motorcycle, and the chance of you dying. Like you love that risk.
Yeah.
Period. And the wind through your hair and the bugs in your teeth and all that, because you're so happy. And so the thing is like, if people can stay in what is, and the thing is, what you're most passionate about, you don't recognize the pain you've gone through because you have enjoyed it. Like if I say I'm passionate about running, people are like, you're nuts. I'm like, but it's so fun. But it wasn't always fun.
Yeah.
So how did it get there? Well, over time it became, now it's my passion.
Yeah.
I
think
so you don't realize sometimes
the price you pay.
You don't realize the fruit that it's bearing because because you loved it. It didn't feel like work, and if it didn't feel like work, you're like, well, how could there be any fruit if there's no work? But really, there's a lot of work that's gone into it, but you just haven't noticed it being hard because you have found so much meaning in the pain. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Can I tell you what mine is?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving Heroes. That's what God made me to do.
Yeah.
Saying that, when I first said it, the first time I said that, this is what I was made to do. This is why I was put on earth. I've done a lot of businesses. I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of things well, and it's all heavy lifting. To create a real estate business is heavy lifting. It's hard work, developing those relationships and negotiating and all the things that have to happen. But Thanksgiving's Heroes, the hard of Thanksgiving's Heroes is all worth it. I can't say that about everything else. Also, I've never done anything like this that has taken legs on its own because all I have to do is be my most authentic self. When I step away from my authentic self, Louie, it doesn't work. Thanksgiving's Heroes fails. The truer I am to who I am, the greater it becomes. I get out of the way and watch this become, as it's grown into a more of a national charity. And my goal was to feed 10 families. The first time I said that, this is what God made me to do, this is why she put me here, is because I need to do this and serve this way. I felt so free.
Liberated.
That's the word, liberated, because I knew I can't fail. I can't fail at this. This is, as long as I stay true to what I'm doing, I cannot fail. And that is my definition. And I don't know if, as I've said this and I've spoken this out loud to men, this is something that I don't necessarily get resonance on, because there's a lot of like, I haven't found my why I've been made. Not my why. We throw that around a lot. What's my why? It's not your why. My why is I'd like to create financial security. Okay, now I've done that. Blah.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's deeper. It's a deeper thing. And I don't know very many people that can say that out loud, and it feels really good for me to say that. And my purpose may change in the future. I can see myself getting to a point where I'm helping other people create nonprofits and them filling their shoes and growing into their why they were made, why God put them here. But once you get that, it really creates a lot of clarity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I just remember, I think it was Leslie Uleberry came over, and when I had Matt paint the shop and all that stuff, and he had painted that, she's like, how did you think of all of this? This was so much work. And I'm like, it wasn't work. Like, I thought, and if I wrote down everything I did,
Yeah.
and if I had tasked myself all that stuff to do, I'm like, dude, I am doing this.
That's
shit.
a list.
There's no way I'm doing all this.
Yeah.
But I just did it, and it felt fun.
Yeah.
And it was work, and it was frustrating.
But it was a revealing.
It was, and I'm like, it was so fun to do. Oh my gosh! Like, how long did it take you? Well, I spent a lot of time doing it, and you're listing it all out. Like Thanksgiving Heroes. Somehow it just happened because you got caught up in your bliss, which was the meaning of your pain, which is your passion, which is your purpose, and that's why you felt liberated.
Yeah.
And when we choose to go into pain, we are liberated.
Amen.
Yeah.
Drop the mic.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful stuff. That's good stuff,
Absolutely.
man.
Wow.
Oh, I love this guy, Louie. Thank you so much. Your ability to clarify my thoughts is the most disturbing part of my relationship with you. Every time I'm around you, I'm like, oh, there it is. That's what I've been thinking. Well, I would love to encourage you, my friend, to make a commitment to win the mornings. Read that Miracle Morning again, and because there's a tremendous amount of momentum that you can gain in the little things.
Yeah.
And you know that to be true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything you don't believe.
Yeah.
And you haven't followed for years. We've talked about the book. We've talked about the routine, the breath work. We've talked about your business and your success. So many things. When I called Topher and I said, oh man, I'm excited about this interview. This guy, we can go in so many directions with this person. There's a lot of people we talk to, we interview, and we can talk about one thing. This thing. Louie, I knew we'd talk about some cool stuff, and I'm glad we went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, thank you.
If I could ask you the question I've asked a lot of our people, I'm excited to hear the answer, is like, if you could put your arm around that guy that just got fired.
First time.
No, the second time. The
Okay,
second time. In
Sorry,
7
let's
months. And you could say, listen, young man, this is some truth. I have some wisdom I'd like to give you. What would you say?
Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to change in order for you to achieve what you want to achieve. Like, it's all happening the way it needs to happen for you to achieve everything that you have dreamt of achieving. It's going to happen the way that it's happening now. That makes sense? Like,
Yeah, relax.
yeah, Marcus Aurelius said, what's happening to you now has been waiting to happen to you from the beginning of time until this very moment. It's supposed to be happening.
The way it's going to work out the way it's going to work out.
Yeah. Everything you dream about achieving in your life, do you know how it's going to happen? It's going to happen by you getting fired the second time. That's how it's going to happen.
That had to happen.
It has to happen.
So good or bad, this has to happen. This is
Yeah.
part of my experience to get to the thing
Yeah.
that I want.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Someone asked me a while ago and said, what would you change? I'm like, nothing. Because it was supposed to happen, how it was supposed to happen. And everything that I failed at, I failed at. The only thing I couldn't change anything, because then I wouldn't have found the breath work. And then I wouldn't have found, nothing. I just wouldn't have. I'm just glad I kept holding on to a dream while all that shit was happening and thinking, this could still be possible. Somehow I would wake up in the morning and just dream about it. Honestly, I would sit sometimes in the morning and just dream about this happening, becoming this person. And then I would think, I don't know how it's going to happen, but man, there's just no way I can dream this. And that's what I love about this book, because Orson Swett Martin says this: God would never allow his children to dream of things that they were incapable of achieving. That would not be a merciful God.
Wow.
Would not be a loving God. But the fact that you can dream it means that it's a prophecy, it's an indication of a potential reality, so long as you continue to persevere and push to the front of the adversities that you have in your life. It's impossible that you cannot achieve your dreams.
Our dreams are given to us
They're given to us as prophecies
in our own lives.
in our own lives.
They're roadmaps.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that when I found that book and I read that, I cried and just thought, I have always dreamt of becoming this person. And even being on this podcast, as to me, this is part of that dream. I wouldn't be here if I didn't persevere to achieve something
Absolutely.
that you didn't recognize. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So being here is a revelation,
Even a recognition.
a recognition of me achieving what I dreamt was possible.
Man.
Does that make sense? So
So much sense.
even my son, when I was leaving, he's like, Dad, do you have to go? Because he's going on a mission in a couple weeks. And I said, man, if I would have known your mission was leaving, I wouldn't have done it, but I do have to go. And I should go. And there's a part of me that didn't want to come, because I thought, dude, he's gone in a couple weeks. And he wants me there. When your kid's 18 and
And
it's
he
like,
still wants to hang out.
Dad, I just want to hang out with you tonight.
Wow.
I'm like, shit,
Yeah.
But there was a part of me, and I said, Luke, part of me, I have to do, this is important for me to do for some reason. And being here tonight, sharing this with you, there's a lot of things that I've really never said, put together, because of the collective collaboration of the thoughts that have been very inspiring for me. And I'm like, I needed to be here.
I needed you to be here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Louie.
Yeah. So, and when I go home, I'm going to tell Lou, I needed to be there.
Yeah.
I did it for me, and I didn't even know it,
Yeah. Amazing.
So, yeah, thank you.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you needed to be here tonight too and listen to this message, this powerful, powerful message. Please share this podcast with your friends and family. Subscribe and let us know what your thoughts are. This was amazing for me, Louie. Thank you so much for carving out this time for me.
Yeah.
For me personally, thank you. And we'd love to welcome you back when time permits, because I feel like there's so many other questions that I have for you. Grateful for Louie. If I wanted to learn more about Breathwork, or if I wanted to get in touch with you, can we just look you up on Facebook?
Just look me up on Facebook, and
we'll put your link in the
we'll
notes here, and we'd love to support you any way that we could in your journey here. Again, the American Mastermind, our goal is to enrich your life with wisdom wisdom and knowledge and these golden nuggets. Please share this and let's get the word out there. So grateful. Have a good night.
Thank you.